All right, we'll call this meeting of the Berlin Boylston Regional School Committee to order. Please stand for the allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks everybody. We're here tonight for scheduled interviews for our interim superintendent position. Tracy Novick is going to help us organize them and bring them in. We each have a packet with the questions, so we'll stick to those questions. I believe they're assigned, so we'll each read one or two. Megan is not with us tonight. She has a personal issue, so she's not with us tonight. So any questions that are assigned to Megan, I'll just read myself. All right.
Mr. Chair, your first candidate. Good evening.
Thank you. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Ms. Donna Flaherty.
Donna Flaherty, yes, I was debating whether I should come around and shake all of your hands, but in light of the fact that the flu was going through our building, I thought you would probably prefer that I did not do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we all, as you probably know, we voted on some questions to ask you. We have a list of them. We're just going to go around, read them, and feel free to answer how you wish.
Sure, that sounds great.
All right, I'll start with why are you interested in this position and this district?
Sure, that's a great question. For me, I really love, I got to know the community through my work at Accept. I was just telling the story that we do a lot of external professional development. We travel around for groups of teachers and sped directors and what have you. So we've been holding our new sped directors institute over at the Haven. So I had the opportunity to drive around the community and see what it looked like, and it just looked like such a wonderful place. It reminded me of the town that I raised my children in, which was a nice small town. We were also part of a regional school district as well. During my time there, I served 6 years as a school committee member and 5 years on the finance committee member. So I understand sort of the playing push and pull of being in a regional school district. But what I really like about it is the opportunity in a small, town. You have the opportunity to really immerse yourself into the community and really get into the schools, get to know the students, get to know the teachers, get to know the principals. You have a total of 3 schools, makes it, just delightfully manageable. I think there's about 1,100 students that you have as well, which really makes it easy to get to know students on a one-on-one basis and be able to go in at lunchtime and see the students and, have those conversations to see how their days are going. So a lot of that appeals to me, as well as I really do like the structure of, having a selectman, having the finance committee. That speaks to me as to how you can work together and collaborate. I know also that you have a fire building that you need, as well as needing a senior center and some other issues on your budgets during what we call the fiscal cliff in education these days, as I'm sure you're well aware of. So really, the play of all of that and knowing what the community's needs are and understanding the community and the culture and being able to be a part of all of that, it's exciting to me.
All right, thank you. Lisa, would you like to ask the next question, please?
Sure. How do you build strong relationships with parents, teachers, your admin team, town select board, finance committee, capital committee, and the school committee?
Just a handful of people. So I would obviously start with an entry plan. I would define what the questions would be that I would want to ask people so that I could quickly get up to speed on what the town initiatives are, the school's initiatives. And then I would schedule certainly one-on-ones with each of you. So I could ask you, what are your dreams, hopes? What do you see for the future of the school? The weaknesses that you would want to work on, as well as what you're proud of most about both school and your towns of Berlin and Boylston. I would do the same in meeting with my admin team, central office team, and the principals. I would want to meet with each of them one-on-one, really kind of get a way of knowing them, see what their needs are. I've noticed in your the strategic plan that you're ending now, that you really had a lot of initiatives in a short period of time. So I wonder the impact of that on the principals and on the teachers. All good things, because we want our students to have positive outcomes, right? We're all here for the sake of our students and their future, and they can't do it without us. But, you know, what does that mean for our staff, and how can we help them to continue to be more successful? I would also meet with teacher groups as well. I would want to meet with the union president and understand what they're doing, have ongoing meetings with everybody. Certainly, I would apply that same to the select board, finance committee, capital committee. Again, you've got a lot going on in both towns, and how do we balance all that? So the only way to do that is really having that rapport and getting to know people and understand what is the culture of the town, and what is the culture of the town politics in Berlin, which could be very different than in Boylston, and what their needs are, and how does that apply to the culture that we have here in the school district as well. You know, and even with your separate elementary schools, although we're still one school district, you still have very unique cultures and identities within those elementary schools as well. So really teasing all of that out and being able to immerse myself in that and understand, you know, who the people are and what their needs are in that sense. Once I gathered all that information, that would be a wonderful opportunity to sort of form a committee and set the direction. Look at where you are in your strategic plan now, where we're going to go, have a full committee, including parents, community members, school committee members, administrators, teachers, and students as well, because we want to engage our older students in all of that and see what do they think they're living every single day in our school district. So what do they think about that? What are the changes that they would like to see in our strategic plan? Further, what I do presently is I do one-on-ones once a week with my central office staff, and then I do twice a month I meet with my entire leadership team. We do a variety of things from mentoring, professional development, as well as really digging in deep with regards to what we need to do for our students, for our schools, for our teachers as well. We all know that there's more and more difficulty in finding teachers that have the license that we need to put in front of our students. So some of what we do is go out and make relationships with Bridgewater State College, Mass Bay Community College, so that we're taking our paraprofessionals and our teachers, and we're collaborating with the university and colleges in order to make programs for them to attend, so that we can help them and guide them along the way into getting their licenses. So really, we talk a lot about that during those 2 meetings a month, and they're usually a full morning each month, twice a month. And some of it is their professional development. So for example, a lot of my administrators really needed to understand budgeting. You know, we work at the collaborative. We don't have a budget that we receive on July 1 like a school district does, but we have a profit and expense budget, which means it's like running a small business. So we really need to go out and make our money. We have no entitlement grants, so we're very active in getting competitive grants. But basically, they needed to understand that, and they needed to understand their budget. So really looking at what their needs are and fulfilling those needs as well.
Next question was from Megan, but Megan's not here tonight. So what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses as a leader?
Okay. We all have them. We all know that. So I think one of my greatest strengths, if I thought about it, would be my tenacity. I really, when I see a problem or I see something that I think needs to be done, for example, you know, we needed licensed teachers. What are we doing, right? How can we help with that situation? It's really getting out there and problem solving, collaborating, and setting up a plan and action that we can work together to get to the end of that. I would also say that I'm a servant leader, so I really look at students' needs, parents' needs, staff needs, community needs. How can I help? What skills do I have that I can apply to bring resolution and solve some of the problems or issues, or celebrate all of the good things that we're doing, because we certainly do a lot of good things that we don't want to lose, and we want to make sure people know that, and how are we advertising that. as well to our community so they do understand where their tax dollars are going. So I love that work and I love doing that. I love mentoring people. I've mentored any number of teachers to become administrators, whether it be principal or special education director and superintendent. So that's something that I find beneficial with regards to, like I said, leadership. As far as my weaknesses go, I think one of my weaknesses can be because I am very oriented on getting the job done and what are we doing and how are we achieving it, that I really have high standards for myself and I really like deadlines and I like people to hit their mark. And, you know, when we have a strategic plan and we're looking at what our initiatives are for the year, I have my team create a map for the year. And this is probably my engineering background coming in, but we do a map and we work backwards, like where do we need to be at all the different places in order to hit our mark at the end. So one thing that can sometimes frustrate me that I have to think about how can we work on is if somebody's, you know, not meeting their deadlines and they're falling behind, and really sitting down and having those conversations with them. What do you need? How can we help you? What do we need to take off your plate? So really looking at it that way, but I'm very deadline oriented and project oriented, and I want to get things done for kids and for the community.
Beth, would you mind asking the next question?
How will you handle the balance of respecting longtime employees of the district's experience and familiarity with how things have always been done with new ideas, changes, and perspectives?
And that's not an uncommon occurrence everywhere. And so I think when I look at that and I think about it, I think a lot of times what happens is if you're a longtime employee, and it doesn't matter where you are, right? It could be at the Berlin-Boylston Regional School District, or it, you know, could be working at Ganam or wherever. You want to feel that you're valued. You want to feel that the work that you've done has meaning and means something to people. You want to feel that in the case of, you know, we're working with children, and that's what matters. It's not widgets, it's not producing, you know, computers or something like that. We're working with children. And you want to know that the work you've done over the many years that you've been here is respected, has positive outcomes. And you want people to reflect on that and let you know that. And I think sometimes what I've seen in my experience is that when people hear, you know, about a new initiative or, you know, things are changing, that their work is no longer valued, that they're no longer valued, and they take it rather personally. And that's, we understand that, right? That's understandable. So the question is, how do you deal with that? What's the go around to make people appreciate, you know, that we know the work that you've done and how important it is? And I think it's really getting in there, getting on the ground floor and understanding what their culture is. You know, why is this important to them? What part did they play in that? What do they think about the potential new initiatives? What can we do to make them feel comfortable? What does a rollout look like for a new initiative? Have we planned it properly? Have we considered a timeline for it? Does it make sense for our staff? What are the steps we need to do in between the, here's a great idea, Desi's asking us to do this, so let's get over here and do it. What happens in between and how long is that going to take? And I think in order to make it respectful, in order to have it roll out properly, we really need to involve all the constituents in it and have task forces. So that would be including our teachers in that, some of our administrators, inviting parents and students in that, to really have those conversations, piloting some things so that they have a voice. They want to know that their voice matters and that they can have a voice in what's happening. I mean, after all, if we don't have happy, productive teachers in our classroom, we're going to see that with our children, right? So we need to value our teachers. We need to value our paraprofessionals and our related support staff. And by we do that, by applauding and celebrating all of their achievements and then bringing them into the new initiatives that we're looking at. I think I would also say, so we've had a couple new initiatives that we've done at the Accept Collaborative. So we've seen a change since the pandemic. Our biggest initiative that we have are programs for students with disabilities. And we've had a shift, a huge shift in the 6 years that I've been there from most of our students initially were students who had multiple disabilities, who had intellectual impairments, who had autism. And since the pandemic, our shift is 80% of our students are students who are marching towards a general education diploma, who's going to go on to either, service or college or the workforce. And they deserve a right to the same general curriculum that everybody else has. Well, when I got there, we didn't have that because we didn't have those students. But now we have these students with significant trauma, with significant behavioral, emotional challenges, but who are very bright students who deserve the same as every other student in the Commonwealth. So what we did is we rolled out 2 huge initiatives. One was reading and literacy, because all students deserve to read, and they had lost a lot of instruction between both the pandemic and the fact because of some of their behaviors, they were out of class and they missed instruction. So we wanted to make sure they felt safe, secure, and they could access that instruction. And the other piece was the SEL initiatives, because again, this is what our students need right now. And it's a mandate, by the way, so we have to do that through DESE. But so it was good stuff. So we went out, we achieved some competitive grants for both of those areas. So we received almost $2 million in competitive grants in order to fund all of that. But we really took a step back and thought about for our teachers and said, what do we need to do to make you feel comfortable? Because the first thing you hear is, well, we've never done that before. We've never had to teach the general curriculum. You're right. But you didn't have these students, or, we didn't have these issues before. So really working with them and having a lot of training sessions in regards to, they were shifting with the students that they were working with. So we really needed to bring professional development in to talk about what is a student who has trauma look like and how do we respond. And it's very different than a student who has autism or, multiple disability. Same thing with looking at social emotional aspects, because kids respond in very different ways. And a student who's high functioning autism responds very differently than, a student who's all inward. So we really had to start from the ground floor and start working with professional development with them from there, and then build up and then start having them piloting the different curriculum, both for the SEL and for the reading and literacy initiatives. We brought a coach in for the readings to help them with teaching reading. We did data teams and worked on teaching them how to do data. They were great at behavioral data. We really had to focus on the academic data then because it was a whole different group of students. So really taking a look at what they had done and really trying to bring along those people who had been at the collaborative 20 and 25 years that, were some of the people that were pushing back the most, but really saying we value the work that you're doing. And we still had room for people who did need to instruct students who had autism or multiple disabilities, and, maybe this is the place for you. And so really letting people have that option and opportunity to sort of move around to where it made sense for them, but that they were still a valued member of our community. But, and again, I think sometimes it's just, what am I losing? And do people respect me? And really looking at that and making sure that we understand that, our teachers and our staff are people too, and that, we really need to value them and value the work that they've done and show them that we care. What you do is important and we respect that.
Thank you, Jess. Would you mind asking the next question?
Yep. We have flu in this district as well, so I apologize. So how could you create an environment where staff felt safe to approach you with problems?
So as I said, my leadership style is that of a servant leader. I always have an open door policy. I've always, when I was an assistant principal, sped director, I've always had an open door policy. I try and find ways of integrating myself in the classroom. I will go down and help with, on a rough day, I'll go down and I'll insert myself, I'll teach a lesson, really show them that what they do, I'll do, because it's, for the sake of the students. And we want the students to progress, and we want the students to feel safe and want to come there. So it's really showing them that we're all in this together, and then they feel comfortable with me. When the pandemic hit, one thing I found that was very beneficial was every Wednesday, and I continue it today, is every Wednesday from usually about 3 to 4 o'clock, I have an open Zoom meeting. So anybody can join that open Zoom meeting and they can have a conversation with me. They can ask me about certain things. I've had, a couple of my life skills teachers talk to me about getting a new refrigerator for their classroom, all the way to just talking about what fun things people are planning to do over vacation or, over the weekend or something, and all kinds of things in between. We've talked about some of the initiatives we've rolled out. We've talked about what plans might be as we progress forward, as we're restructuring things. So really, I leave it open for anyone to come in for an hour and we just have a conversation. Some people pop on for 5 minutes. Some people stay the whole time. I have some people who show up pretty regularly and other people who've only shown up once or twice, but it's there for them and it gives them an opportunity to really get to know me as a person as well as themselves. And because our facility is spread out a bit like most collaboratives, it allows people out in Midway to be able to participate as well. So I also do, building visits, program visits. We do walkthroughs where we get to know, the students and the staff. I greet every Monday. I greet at one building or another students coming in for the week. So I think it's just really being a person, being vulnerable. When we opened school this year, I shared a story about one of my brothers. Like we talked about the why. I wanted people to think about, why do we do this work, right? Why are we here? Working with students and in collaborative, sometimes, days can be incredibly difficult. So why are we here? Why do we keep coming back? So I really wanted to share with them my why. So I think being vulnerable in front of your staff and sharing personal information and letting them get to know you as a person is just so beneficial. So I really kind of shared how my why really centered on, I come from a big family, there's 7 of us, 7 siblings. And my oldest brother, and he had his struggles in life and really kind of shared about that. He passed away about 1.5 years ago, and really wanted to kind of talk about his story and how that really changed the trajectory of what I thought my career would be. I started off in engineering, love math, love numbers, wanted to do that, but then I had a lot of whys and a lot of curiosity and, how are we all from the same family and yet this is happening and that is happening. So I really wanted to understand that. So went back to school and, got my master's in special ed and elementary ed and then wanted to know more and shifted my career just so I could understand that and how I could apply that to life and really, be a positive person in the lives of a lot of children and a lot of students. So I think being vulnerable is just so important and just being, a typical person, going to football games, going to events, going to spelling bees, all of those pieces where they can come see you cheering on Fear the Deer, that there you are and wearing your green. So I think it's important. And I have kids who come and see me, or they'll ask, their principal if, they're having a little trouble, and, I want to see Miss Donna. I want to talk to her about this problem, which is kind of fun. So it's nice. But yeah.
Thank you. Another question from Megan. So how do you handle conflict situations within the school district?
There's always lots of conflict situations in school districts. And again, I think the important part is we need to form relationships. That's, key and utmost of importance is forming positive relationships and rapport with all of the people in the school district. Really getting to know people, understanding their values, understanding the culture. Again, each of your buildings has a different culture. I'm sure your admin team has a different culture. Your principals probably band together and have their own culture. I know that when I was in that position, we did that because, only so many people understand that role thoroughly. So really looking at, what is it that people are striving for and what is it that they want. So I talked a little bit about how we've done some schooling with my leadership team with regards to budgeting, right? What does the budget look like? What is your piece of the pie? How do you manage your piece of the pie and how does that impact this? So, and the reason for that is because oftentimes, and I'm just using the budgeting as an example, the reason for that is, people look at a $25 million budget and say, I know you have $150 in there to get me fill in the blank, whatever that is. We don't. And here's why we don't, right? So what does that look like? When you have principals are wonderful at protecting their people, and giving them what they need because, again, happy teachers, happy kids, positive outcomes for everybody. Same thing in special education. We know that kids could do better if, fill in the blank. So how do we balance all of that? And I find that often the conflict does center around what we need for our kids and advocating for our kids and how do we successfully manage that with all of the different people that we know are here for such good reasons. For the outcomes of our students. So how do we work with those people so that they understand and give them an opportunity to sort of look at the big picture as well and have those hard and difficult conversations. So, collaboration is key, positive rapport is key, education is key, what people need to understand and learn and know about. But then ultimately as well, somebody has to make those hard decisions as well, right? At some point in time, as the superintendent, as the executive director, I make that decision, if it's going to be this or how we're going to distribute things. And it really needs to be in the best interest of what we're doing for kids. We really need to go back and take a look at our strategic plan. What did we say that we were going to do this year? How are we achieving those outcomes and those initiatives? Where are we at? Are we measuring it properly? What do we need to bolster this initiative? And do we need to shift funds or do we need to shift people or, what the conflict is? If we go back to your question with regards to new initiatives, how do we keep peace with the teachers? Are we giving them properly what they need in order to do their jobs functionally? So really taking a look at that and considering, what is in the best interest overall with the district. And if I took that another step further and I started thinking about the community as well, we have two communities as well as our district community. You really have to apply very similar logic in strategic planning and building relationships and rapport with your selectmen and your finance committee and your capital committee. You need to visit your seniors because you need them to also understand this is our strategic plan. This is why we're doing what we do. This is why we're asking for what we're asking for. Here's the results we're hoping for. Here's the standards that the state is requiring of us. And here is the portrait of a graduate that we want to see for our students. So really, without that level of understanding, people are just going to kind of fall back. And, we've all heard it, schools get the biggest chunk of the budget. Yes, we do. We have the most people. We're serving the entire population of the students within our town. But it impacts the town. You want them to be successful. You want them to come back and to have their jobs and to settle in your towns and just keep that town and community going with happy people. So, it's all tied together. So I think that, So insofar as dealing with conflicts, I think it's the building blocks that you start with, right? The rapport, the relationships, the understanding of the community, the understanding of the cultures, which can be very different in different areas. And then how do you apply that and how do you provide knowledge and education to people about what our mission and vision is for our children?
Thank you. Next to me. So could you speak to your skills and experience in the budget process? You just did a little bit, but please address your experience specifically with regional school budgets.
Okay,
If
sure. I have a lot of experience in the budget process in a variety of different settings, which I found to be quite beneficial in regards to, problem solving and really being able to take a look at a budget and think about how we can resolve it. As I had told you, when I was on the school committee in the regional district that I was in, 2 small towns, I also sat on the finance committee, and I have to say that's some of the best education I ever had in my life. It really, being on the school committee made me truly understand how schools function. I had no idea. I was a teacher at the time. I had no idea. But it really opened up my eyes to, the balancing, the planning, the difficult decisions that school committee members have to make with regards to policies and procedures and, what your specific roles are within the community as well. And then I took that, so I did that in my first year, and then my second year, I was the finance liaison from the school committee, but I was an active full member of the finance committee, and that in itself as well. So I was able to take that knowledge I had developed about the school budget and understanding all the different aspects of it. And I was able to bring that up to another level and truly start understanding all of the different needs and wants of all of the different town departments. The fire department wants another station. The seniors have been fighting for a center for 10 years. The police are looking to bring in 2 more police officers because they don't have anybody during certain times of the night. All of those different aspects and the balancing of it all. Taking a look at what a bond is, understanding that, and when you're building or when you're adding to your HVAC or your roofing, and what are all the different pieces that you need to know in order to formulate a strategic plan for your town, a 10-year plan, really, you're looking at for a town because of the tax base and all of that. So that was terrific. The aspect of that, then sitting at the table as school committee member of a regional school committee, was really balancing. So my town was smaller that I lived in. We didn't have a lot of business, so it was really on the backs of the people living there. They, when the taxes went up, it was really, they were property taxes. There's no sales tax in New Hampshire, so it all goes to property taxes. So it's a little bit different structure. Whereas the other town, although small in itself, it had a lot of business in it. So they could afford or ask or look for a larger increase of renovating the vocational center or, whatever it is that they wanted. So it was really working on that balance with my fellow school committee members from the other town as well as the members on that town, as to understanding the different places we're all in and, bringing in what our towns needed as well to really come to some general consensus with regard to what we were going to ask for the budget and what that was going to look like for each town. Each town voted their separate budget, but there was still an implication across the board for both. And I know you understand that because you're in the same situation. So we have that. As far as, when I was in Battle Creek, Michigan, and I was the director of student services there, Battle Creek, Michigan is a city. My department alone had a budget of $50 million. So really balancing that budget and looking at all the different, we had 4 high schools, we had 6 middle schools. It was really quite large. We had a very high population of students with disabilities. So managing that whole budget gave me a good opportunity to really take a look at a larger overarching budget and how to manage that and prioritize as well. And again, circle back to what is our district plan and what are our priorities and initiatives for this year, while balancing those unexpected district placements or busing situations that you might have. As far as, and that's the same with the other opportunities that I've had when I was the director of student services or the assistant superintendent. Working as an assistant principal, I understood how you really are looking for your own building, your own people, and that budget is the most important piece to you. So I feel like I can appreciate that and I can understand that perspective as well. As an executive director, I had mentioned earlier that we don't receive like our budget on July 1st and then we manage our budget. We have to generate a revenue. We have to bring in competitive grants. That's how we have our budget. So we propose a budget, work collaboratively with my central office senior team. We propose a budget we would be starting our budget few months because we have the budget approved by December of the year. So we have to propose our initiatives by October. So it's really thinking in terms of being a business person and really having to balance that and really having to look at it. And, it's a very similar application to what you have to do with regards to a budget in a school district, and particularly in a regional district. You really have to take a look and watch your money and see where you're at each month and ensure that, your percentages aren't going over or you're not exceeding in a particular area, and really resetting and regrounding and bringing ideas and bringing that information to the school committee so that they're fully aware as well and that they can vote and make some decisions with regard to what we think are the best initiatives or directions that we have to do. So I have a lot of experience in budgeting and presenting budgets at town meetings and presenting budgets to finance committees, boards of directors, all of that.
Thank you. Laura, last but not least, would you take the last question?
So my question's long, but the good news is the answer's probably short, and it gives your voice a rest. But I need to kind of tell a little background. So we're currently in the middle of a big shift. Our current interim superintendent has had to do much more than just his superintendent duties. He's trying to make sense of last year's budget and finding things like job descriptions and professional practices that need updating or creating, as just some simply don't exist. There were two rural districts that kind of came together. He typically works well beyond 7 p.m. on weekdays, attends town meetings in both Berlin and Boylston that often run until 9 or 10, and he often spends weekends in central office. Do you feel you are equipped to continue his work? Would you be able to dedicate as much time to turning our district around so we could attract a full-time superintendent next year?
Short answer, yes.
See, I didn't know.
No, I think that anybody who's sitting in a superintendency and executive director seat, that is the expectation. Like, you understand what the work is. You understand there's a lot of work. In a collaborative, we wear many, many hats. I've been serving as the Director of Student Services as well as the Executive Director sometime. I take a huge role in the finances, I work 7 days a week now in this job. I think it's important that you have the finger on the pulse of what's happening in your district, in your collaborative. You want to make sure that you're meeting the needs of your community as well. We've developed some parent programs and parent support groups as well to bring our parents in. So that requires some night work. We've created cooking classes for some of our life skills students and students on the spectrum so that we can bring those students in, give them skills that they need, as well as at the same time then we give our parents a break by doing a workshop for them. We had, I think last month, the workshop was physical education for your students because, they need to be physically fit too. So really doing a lot of that weekend and night work. I talked about, it's important to see the superintendent at the football games or the girls' basketball games. It's important to go to the plays and show the kids and the parents that you care about what's happening with their children. You care about what's happening with them as well. And I've flipped pancakes at, the Rotary Club and all of those different activities too. So, honestly, it's really just an expectation when you sign up for this type of position, and you know that going in. I hope you know that going in. So, because you've done all the work and, to perceive that we're, even assistant superintendents are there all the time. And so yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. That's our final list of questions. Tracy?
Yes, so I'm going to walk you out. I've got a couple more interviews and you'll hear from me one way or the other this evening. So plan is to make a decision soon.
Speaking of late nights.
All right,
Thanks, everybody.
Tracy,
Give me just a minute or two.
Yeah.
Sure, and I'll have your next candidate. Yep,
Okay, yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
yep, and you already have another packet.
All right. For those watching at home, I don't know how the video is coming across. We did have a problem with the camera earlier today. It apparently broke. It's that camera in particular was 11 years old, someone said, 2014, right? Yeah, so 11-year-old camera, so that broke. So fortunately, one of the employees here had a camera, so we're using that tonight. I'm not sure how good it's going compared to the previous, but I don't know if that's going to fit into the budget or not for a new camera. We'll have to see, but hopefully we got something going, so you'll be able to watch something. But it's not the same video quality you're used to, or maybe it's better because it looks like a newer camera. No, he's shaking his head now. It's definitely not better. No. All right, well, that's the story.
And Mr. Chair, here is Dr. Gilson. I'm just going to get her a water.
Thank you. Sure.
This is my spot.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good, thanks. So we're just going to do the same. We have a list of questions I think you have there as well. So we'll just take turns reading through them.
Okay.
So first up, why are you interested in this position in this district?
I think it would be an absolute joy to do this position. I come from Hopkinton, which is 30 minutes away, so the drive is absolutely wonderful. It cuts down on my commuting time. Plus, I'm looking at the district as, I have been in a regional for over 2 decades. And being in a regional, you learn everything about the nuances of regional that really are different than being a part of municipalities. And so I have learned about the importance of the role of the superintendent in bringing all of the communities together. I had 3 communities that were a part of that. And I think I would absolutely delight in having 2 communities. I loved the work. I loved being visible and present and accessible. I was able to build strong relationships, and clearly I was very much at home in a regional. And I will also share that the name of the district was King Philip, which you probably have already seen from my resume. But the interesting story behind King Philip, I always like to know a little bit of the history of the school and the name. And King Philip was actually an Anglo-Saxon name. And for Metacomet, who was a Wampanoag chief. But I noticed that your middle high school also has a Native American Indian chief name too. And so I thought that was kind of fun for me. So the other perk, the students' enrollment was about 2,000, and this also would be a delight because it's a little smaller, and I think that the problems or the challenges that come with running any school district are still there, and they would be very engaging for me to work with and collaborate with the people in Berlin and Boylston. So I would love that. And I think additionally, I took the day off. This was the first vacation day I have had in like a year. And I really wanted to do a nice job in my presentation at this interview because I would really like to be here. So I took the day off and I have thought about things and I prepared. And I really, I enjoyed my day. And it was also nice that it was so wonderful outside. But on my way here, it kind of started to rain. So there are many factors in terms of why I would enjoy being here. And this is, I feel like I'm an exceptional fit based on my background. And not only am I just regional schools, but I have so many other aspects of what I could bring to the district. Like I have strengths in engineering, I have strengths in education, I have, any kind of, I have multiple certifications at both the teaching level and multiple certifications across the admin level. So I would also be a good coach for anybody and be able to recognize any challenges that we might need to confront.
Thank you. Lisa?
How do you build strong relationships with parents, teachers, your admin team, town select board, finance committees, capital committee, and the school committee?
Okay, I saw that question and I listened to your video and I thought, you know what, that's like an entry plan type of question, and I actually prepared something. This is how I would manage all of those relationships.
You want me to pass it out?
Oh, sure.
You can, I'll pass it
Okay, I would love that. And so, as not to lose focus, and I highlighted some aspects of this entry plan, and I certainly have strong strength in building relationships. And so, first I would actually like to start with how I might build a relationship with you all on the school committee. And basically, I would want to have trust, open communication, and be able to share the leadership, because there are things that we all would need to work together on. I would be very open to conducting individual meetings, whether they're virtual or in person, at any time, whenever we feel that that's necessary. I'd also like to get to know you as people. So that would be good for me, and good for you. In terms of regular communication, I would enjoy like sending you a Friday weekly email every Friday. This is the state of things that are going on in the district. I want to keep you well informed. And in terms of collaboration, I'm a really frequent collaborator, and I look to shape district goals, policies, and priorities through retreats or workshops. I also love a no surprise on both sides rule. And if there's something that I don't know, please feel free to share it. And likewise, if there's a crisis that happens at the school, I also would get actively in touch with you right away as soon as able to do so. Okay? Let's see, and then in terms of communicating, basically we look at also some training and professional development, but I always like to talk about groups with what they think they need, because it does no good to provide anybody professional development that they don't want. I always like to listen and hear what people's needs are. Then I've been actively involved with select boards, town leadership, and FinComs. And so, there's a part of getting to know the culture in the town, right? And so as I would extend myself to be open to invite invitations to have them come to our meetings and set up virtual meetings on a monthly basis. I would have specific agendas so that they could get to know the school And like specific agendas, could certainly include like a facility director update, because that is often essential if you're going to be working on capital planning projects. I've had the pleasure this year of working on several capital planning projects. In fact, I actually served as interim facilities director because we lost our facilities director, and we weren't able through the interviewing process to find the right fit. I had an engineering background, it was a light lift, so I did it, and in addition to my current job. I've also taken on as a regional school district person for another dual job role. I took on the assistant superintendent and middle school principal simultaneously before it became a permanent position, and then I assumed that role permanently. I love to involve town people early in any type of budget, because one of the things that's unique about regional schools is that while the school committee approves the budget, both towns must vote to pass the budget at the town meeting. So I know that, and I think it is smart to just, start, educating and collaborating as early on as possible. So going on, I'm not going to read every single bullet because if you'd like to, you can follow and ask me any question you would like. But very quickly, I love to be visible in schools, and part of that visibility, one of the things that I had fun with when my music teacher said, hey, would you conduct a concert, be the guest conductor and work and conduct the finale? I said, sure, and I did. And I've also been absolutely present for high school pathways. One of our requirements was that our students that pursue like a STEM pathway or a global studies pathway, that they absolutely do like a final presentation, a research-based presentation where they were given feedback by some of our strongest teachers, and also I would join in and also provide feedback. And it was like watching the students give like a mini master's level project, but they were at the high school level. It was really great. So looking at that, I love to be in schools, in classrooms. I would make an attempt to visit every single classroom in the first 90 days, okay? As I meet with people, one of the things that I continue to try to find out, and this has been fascinating, I use a SWOB acronym, which is, it's almost funny, but that SWOB is actually strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and I don't like the T, that's why I substituted for a B, and the B is barriers. I just figured, I feel that that's less threatening. I can do that interview within, casually, informally, I can do that within 5 minutes. So, and you find out a lot of information which can guide you forward and in your work with every single person. Also, being that this is a school district, the top responsibility, the top priority is while you're building relationships, you have to pay attention to the teaching and learning that's going on, because that's why we're here. That's the first mission of a school, to be one that is a place where students feel comfortable and learn and grow. So also, the last part of this would be community and engaging families. And I take that very seriously, because kids can't learn unless they have strong teachers and strong adults behind them. And again, as I would get to know people, there are just so many types of forums that you can do that really bring in people that get me excited and get the community excited. And so these are some of the things, like ideas, topics. that I would consider doing. And like, it basically means the superintendent, well, that's just, it's just me without a preconceived agenda at all. And, if they're parent and caregiver kinds of forums too, you can look at what's really challenging people. Is the homework challenging? Is, do they need some sort of help learning the new math program? So what do we need to do together to make that happen? Okay? And in terms of operation and physical systems review, again, I have already shared that I have been an interim director of facilities for 6 months while I did my current position. And I did my current position, I really felt that while I already had the business licensure, that I really needed myself more hands-on experience crafting a budget. Okay, so in terms of that, I built additional relationships, and I have specifically crafted a financial budget for the town. We worked with select boards, FinComs, to put it across the table, and all the staff in the school to get it a $25.7 million budget, which was very respectable. Okay, so that is my fun. And really, I enjoy every minute. Also in terms of the capital committee, I have had a significant amount of experiences developing a 10-year capital plan in the absence of the facility director. I also got my Massachusetts certified public purchasing official license this year, which makes me able to put together bids, contracts, anything, and know the level of laws and the legal aspect of that. Okay.
Thank you.
So sorry, that's a long wind, but it was a tour, and I respected on the video. Someone said somebody's gonna need to, maybe ask another part of that question or be reminded about. So I just said, okay, just put it all down. You can take it, look at it, have fun with it, and I can also speak more about anything on that list, but.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next would be Megan, so I'll take that. So what are your greatest strengths and weaknesses as a leader?
Okay, I really spent the year developing my strength as a finance person, and I have not been sorry. I have learned a significant amount, and I also always had a knack for working with spreadsheets. I found I'm extremely good in negotiations. And in my current position, I was fortunate because this year we had 2 unsettled contracts, which we were able to resolve. I learned to test my own ability. I can create models where I can simulate right on the spot what it's going to look like at different percentages. I have also been able to our paraprofessionals were looking at a restructure, like complete wipeout of what we had in the past and create a new professional looking structure. So I can also do that at the drop of a hat. So I learned to test myself and challenge myself. So what I would have considered before I started a weakness, now it is a strong strength. I think my other strength is working collaboratively with teams to overcome barriers that lead to really good solutions. And some are really, when you talk barriers, in terms of really good solutions, I found that we were able to recreate That was supposed to be the time I was supposed to walk in. But anyway.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. So, in terms of strengths, we took a middle school schedule and really had to get on a total recreation of it. We had a big fiscal loss. Things didn't work anymore as they should have. And so we sat down with the full middle school team and then said, hey, how can we look at our data points? How can we make this better? And we looked at things we wanted to change. We had a world language program we needed to make better because the students by the end of 8th grade were only getting 3/4 of a year of world language. So, plus they were only getting one language, so we separated into 2 languages and we got them a full year. We also looked at revising the 8th grade math program so that our students were better prepared by the time they got to be a senior in high school to take calculus and take calculus AB or BC, which was excellent. We revised our intervention and enrichment programs so they all met at the same time. And therefore, we had kids that were always learning and we fixed a block. And so we really came up with a far better solution than what had been in place. That was sustained for about 13 years successfully and survived every budget cut that we had. And so I really felt like, in terms of working on something, it was really a collaborative team effort. I led that team, but we emerged with better things than when we started. So that was really a good thing. And so the last thing is that I really love to build capacity, because I like to get to know people, and it's not just about what they do during the day. I like to talk with them and really learn about what they feel they can do best. And sometimes I see things that they didn't necessarily see in themselves about what they can do best. So I have encouraged people to get other certifications. And like I had an English teacher who never thought of teaching history, but I thought she'd be great. And so I encouraged her to get the middle school licensure in humanities, and she loves it. She's now teaching history and doing very well and loving every day. So, and I also, in terms of building capacity, looking at, in 2014, I saw the need, Deval Patrick came out with a recommendation that schools should have school resource officers, and we didn't have one. So I worked with the police chief and my then superintendent, because I was a principal. I saw the need. I reached out and we created the position, but also the position was created in a unique way. So that I didn't want just a person that walked the beat around the school. I wanted somebody that was really engaged. The person did trainings for us on school safety, and we did an active shooter training, which was actually was a lot of preparation. The school resource officer talked directly to my staff to prepare them, because I didn't realize, I knew it was important, but I didn't realize how much I had staff members that literally were thinking like they didn't want to do it, they didn't, and so we gradually moved through the process, and she actually was absolutely excellent. And she actually was one of the people who wrote one of my letters of recommendation. So anyway, so that was a fun journey. In terms of weaknesses as a leader, I mean, my weakness is that I really get almost, but I think it's also a strength. Like you get too, I get very engaged by problems. I do. And so engaged that like I sleep on them and they rotate in my brain. And and maybe that leads to a quicker solution. It definitely gives me less sleep, but I love to think. Okay?
Thank you, Beth. You should take the next one, please.
How will you handle the balance of respecting longtime employees of the district's experience and familiarity with how things have always been done with new ideas, changes, and perspectives?
You have to do this. You have to honor all of the experience because you will be going at things blind. And I really, if you have to, one of the things that I like to do sometimes is establish norms, like with groups as they come in, and I put the norms up on my office wall. And if there's opportunity, there's always opportunity, but I really think, when it needs to be generated, the norms need to be generated by the group, but they need to value honoring past practice. Because anytime you sit with your union leadership board and they have some sort of, something that they want to discuss, it becomes very much, well, what is past practice? Let's tell you about past practice and let's make sure, and I would talk to my principals to make sure that we have a very solid past practice condition that will support whatever the union is wanting to talk about. So I believe strongly in that. And I can give you an example, and I can try to make it interesting. Co-teaching are you all familiar with co-teaching? Or should I explain it?
Team teaching.
It's where you balance a special educator and a general educator in the same classroom to provide assistance to all students. And if you're looking at the visual after they've been paired together for a while, it should appear seamless. You wouldn't know who's the special educator and you wouldn't know who's the general educator. We were trying to address the gap between basically we were trying to increase the performance of our special education students, which is always a challenge. So we learned as we worked on the past practice that the school had tried to do co-teaching before at an earlier period. People had been turned off and by that, and it almost became a barrier to the reintegration of it or practice. And we looked at why it became a turnoff, because we had people that were a part of it. They had no common planning time between the special educator and the regular educator. It was always a match of convenience. When you work with somebody that intensely, you had better like them because otherwise you're going to end up in divorce. There's that, and then the other thing that we learned was that as they common planning time, match, and there had been very little training. And so what happened was, the root of all this, the general education teacher felt like the primary person in terms of the lead person, and the special education teacher felt like he was playing second place. And that wasn't really affirming for the special education teacher, and it perpetuated the piece where there's always some sort of tension between special ed and general ed. And so once we put that together, what I did was I took a team that was interested in trying again. And so I took a team to see a national expert that I knew was going to be wonderful. And she was absolutely wonderful. So I had a core group of people that were interested. I looked and I actually called her up after the training and I said, I want to really get a great person who can train. And she was in Florida. And so we worked out a situation where I had to actually go virtually and teach some of her PhD classes in STEM, which I did. We did that virtually. But she came, she had a daughter going to Boston College, and she came once a month, and she did some trainings so that by the end of the year, I had a core group of people who really could function with all the different, there's 6 ways you can do co-teaching. And so, she was very good and made them feel very comfortable. She visited classes as we got this going, and we made sure to recast the schedule so that it allowed for common planning time. So people chose their matches, they had better training, and it was successful. And people are so excited now to be doing this. And the data showed that it is boosting achievement for all students. So we looked at the specific strands on the MCAS map, and we noticed that the performance of all students was much better and stronger, and we felt comfortable with it. So that was good. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jess, please take the next one.
How could you create an environment where staff felt safe to approach you with problems?
No staff member has never felt uncomfortable approaching me with a problem. I will say that, but it's part of who I am. Like, I'm not. I like to be visible at the same time approachable, and I choose to work when I don't have confidential things that I am doing. I choose to work. Laptop can come with me. Phone can come with me. I might choose a school library where I sit down and I get my work done. And I might choose a staff lounge where I get my work done. There are desks that we used to have in the hallway where our hallway teachers sat when they did their hallway duties. And so people thought I had assumed hallway duty as a part of my job. But it was just it was what I enjoyed doing. Like I could get my work done and be visible, and people would approach me and say, wow, the administration is so supportive because I see you frequently. But the other thing is you have to provide to make sure that things keep moving. You have to have, as a superintendent, you have to have several groups where you have a planned agenda, where there are, and actually Google agendas work great. And people, you have your central office leadership team, you have an instructional leadership team, you have a district leadership team, which is like the central office, some of the principals and some of the facilities director and technology director and things like that. And the groups, the secret really is you can't just plan a meeting like happenstance with no agenda. You have to have an agenda, but the secret is really frequent meetings. So you have those kinds of meetings at least every other week. Like in a month, you might have 2 meetings. And so people feel comfortable the more that you have these frequent meetings talking. And while there is a flow and an agenda about specific things that are important, like one of our goals this year that we worked on was looking at 5 students and having teachers also look at 5 students that were not performing successfully, and taking a look at what you could do to motivate change in those 5 students. So there's a method to this. It's consistent and it's frequent, and people will come. And the other thing you have to do is be actionable and follow up on whatever is a concern. For example, I would tell you in early August, and I will not forget it, I had a custodian reach out to me, and she said, I'm really worried that I'm really not gonna, she was the head custodian at the high school. She said, I'm really worried I'm not gonna get the school opened for the teachers in good shape on time. And so I said, well, what can we do together? And so she said, well, she said, I've been really short-staffed all summer, and I don't have manpower, and my equipment is broken. And I for scrubbing the floors. And I thought, okay, and the facilities director had said, don't talk, report everything to me, but he wasn't really doing anything. And so we fixed it. I said, what are your suggestions? She said, I need some more people. And so we looked at hiring a team to come in and do 3 days worth of labor for the custodial. And we set goals. I calculated the square footage with her. The price tag on that ended up being $9,999. There's a reason for that in terms of what you know about goods and service laws and what you can do when you bid out something. Anyway, she appreciated that so much. The teachers were able to get in. We didn't have any stressors, because school you can't say, okay, we're gonna open a day late, we're gonna open a week late, because you have to have a certain number of days. And we had the calendar out, it was published, and so that's anytime you have things that you can be actionable, you need to just follow up right away. And that's how we did it. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
So Megan, the question that I will ask is, how do you handle conflict situations within the school district?
There is a conflict somewhere every day, and some are really small, but some are really large. And so, first of all, I'm very calm. You need to be always an active listener, because there's always something that you need to hear more of why is someone so upset, right? And so I have always valued also people's due process. You have to really hear and make a space for them to tell you what they think is the matter. So ultimately, you make your decisions that are in the best interest of students, and you make your decisions that are always in the best interest of the district too. So you have to have that balance. I would want to look at mandated trainings, because in those trainings, people commit and they acknowledge that they are familiar with harassment and reporting for civil rights, what conditions go into those things, ethics. And so I would want to make sure also that that the staff members you have to list who the staff members are that are responsible for those things. And so I would want to make sure that those procedures were in place and anybody that needed to do investigations or hear reports was trained. And if we didn't have somebody that was trained or feel like they needed, I'd bring them in for a refresher. I'd bring a legal consult in for a refresher. So again, I think it's all about people want to be heard. You really need to hear them, and it doesn't always change what it is. And in many cases, it doesn't, but I dealt with anything from, from a cafeteria person claiming civil rights harassment from the cafeteria manager to a student who it seemed like he physically kind of made a caused a choking incident on a school bus to, I've dealt with everything that you could possibly imagine. So, thanks.
Thank you. This one's back to me. So please speak to your skills and experiences in the budget process. Please address your experience with regional school budgets if applicable.
Okay.
I know you already spoke to a little bit, but.
Yes. All right. So let me tell you about more of our challenge with three districts. First of all, I will tell you we had 3 very different procedures at our 3 very different town meetings. 2 of our regional agreement says that 2 out of the 3 towns needed to come to agreement. The 2 towns that were most basically, we were not necessarily sure which way they were going to go, met the same night with their town meeting in different towns at the same time. And so we had that challenge. We had to split up our district team, and one was at one town meeting and the other was at the other town meeting. And we did this for 6 years. And I still don't know if they changed I don't know, but that was not ever advantageous. The challenge of a regional school budget, first of all, school committee can adopt, but they can't vote till it gets to town floor. The other challenge is that the Chapter 70 funding formula, basically you have to take a percentage of that, and each town has an assessment that they pay. And so you are smart if you start the networking with the financial committees and the town managers very early on, because you don't want to get knee deep into a process and have someone tell you, we're not going to approve more than, 2.5%. So while the Chapter 70 amount is, and I've also had the experience of being in a municipality, and I did craft my budget in the municipality this year, but they don't have the same type of assessments that are in the regional school district, and also they, so they can feel free to work with. They can work with that budget, but the major revenue stream is Chapter 78, and that's become a little bit contentious lately because it's not keeping pace with the inflation. And there are all sorts of groups that have gone to meetings at the State House, and there's a big meeting in Amherst to address the need for a different funding formula or revisions to the existing funding formula. So the other parallel with municipalities and with regional school budgets is there are 2 different, there's an excess and deficiency fund for the regional school district. You can only maintain 5% of your budget in that excess and deficiency fund. And you can apply that to each region's or each town's you can use it to offset each town's assessment in terms of the budget. So the other parallel in the municipalities, and the municipality has free cash. And so that's, so it's a little bit, I don't want to say it's easier in a municipality, but it really is easier because you have one budget, one town, and one chapter, one chapter 70 revenue stream. And so all you have to worry about is what the town manager says their funding amount is, and then how you pass the budget through the FinCom and the select board, and the school committee gets to vote on that budget. So regionals are really fun, but they really are more complicated, and people really need to understand the budget process.
Thank you. Last but not least, Lori, please.
So my question is long, but it's not a very long answer for you. It gives you a little rest of your voice. We are currently in the middle of a big shift. Our current interim superintendent has had to do much more than just his superintendent duties. He's trying to make sense of last year's budget and finding things like job descriptions and professional practices that need updating or creating, as some don't exist. He typically works well beyond 7 p.m. on weekdays, attends town meetings in both Berlin and Boylston that often run until 9 or 10, and he often spends weekends at central office. Do you feel you are equipped to continue his work? Would you be able to dedicate as much time to turning our district around so we could attract a full-time superintendent next year?
So, absolutely yes, okay? And, in fact, I certainly would invest, not only as an interim, but I would apply for the full-time, because I have additional years to go and would love to do the job full-time, permanent. Okay, you gave some interesting examples. When you talk about job descriptions, now that I had that pleasure of updating every single job description from 1996 to move it forward to the present in my regional school district, because yes, there were an amazing number that were not updated, not approved. I worked on every single one. The perk of that was that I got to work with lots of people and on the update, and that by the time it was done, the HR director had a great resource to pull job descriptions from. I, as a person, learned a lot from what the different jobs did, which I thought I knew, but as you started to go into the minutia of it, you really learn a lot about and appreciate, and grow more in your appreciation of what different jobs do. So I have had that experience, and certainly I would be, nothing's ever quick, but at least I would be well informed and what to look for. And I always value, you really don't want to go in and change things. You want to look at what's there, and sometimes you have to look really hard at what's there, and sometimes you have to ask continued questions. And so I don't mind asking those continued questions. I don't mind looking hard at what's really there. And I gotta tell you, I was driving home after a school committee meeting that I had this year, and it was like 12:15 a.m. So I have a very supportive family. My son is going to college next year, and my husband is very supportive. He knows, but I will say this job would really, it would give me 1 extra hour a day that I might be able to either choose to reinvest back in the work, or I might be able to choose to be able to do some family things. So, so this would be very much a great fit for me. So, thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you, sorry.
That's okay.
That's our last question, so thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate getting to meet you all.
Thank you. Do you finish what you're saying? That's good.
Yeah.
So I will rock Dr. Gilson out. If you can shuffle your paperwork, and we'll have our third interview ready to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's your word.
Sure.
Not here and.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Proper preparations. You think it's easy? Okay, good evening. Yeah, Kyle, you good?
Yeah.
All right. All right, Mr. Allegan, thank you for coming in. We have a list of questions that each of us will ask you. We've asked the other two, so I'll just start, please. Why are you interested in this position in this district?
So if you don't mind, I know that most of you know my resume and but if I could just give a little bit of an opening and then tie that into that first question. I know I heard partly in the conversation was people hadn't seen my resume, so I want to make sure it's important. I go over my experience as an educational leader. Been doing this job for about 35 years now in education. Started out as a speech and language pathologist, left there and became a teacher at the elementary level. From there, I was asked to be the assistant principal at Worcester Arts Magnet School, truly inner city school, nestled between two low-income housing projects, probably one of the lowest performing schools in the state, and now one of the highest performing schools in the state. It's based on Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, so we're using that whole right brain. I was there for 13 years. It's still one of the highest performing schools in the state of Massachusetts. From there, I was asked to become the principal at City View Discovery School, 700 pupil school, bilingual. So that was definitely a challenge, but a rewarding experience as well too. It was an expanded learning day school. And what that means is you started our day at 8:10 and we ended at 4:10 every day. It was a grant that we wrote and we were able to get for having longer days for our students. After that, I was asked by the superintendent to become the director of curriculum and professional learning for Worcester Public Schools. We're able to serve about 25,000 students and about 3,000 staff. And what that was overseeing MCAS, advanced placement, all the curriculum that went from pre-K to grade 6. All of that was part of the job of being that. Also teacher certification and recertification. So it was definitely a rewarding experience. I did that for about 3 years before I became the superintendent in Camden-Wilbraham Regional School District. I was there for about 6 years as a superintendent. I retired. I was retired for probably a little over a month before I became the director of admissions at a private Federated Catholic, private Catholic school. Definitely a different experience, but it was great to be able to work with families and admissions students to that. Sitting there doing my job at Federated when I got a call from the chair, Megan Riddle, saying, would you apply for the job of interim superintendent of schools for Berlin Wilson? And that was literally my first day. It was sometime in August 24th, right around that. Had a few days to transition with the previous superintendent and then just hit the job running. So I have been here for a little over 7 months as the interim superintendent of schools. So why am I interested in this position? I go back to the title of being an interim, right? I hired interim principals, I hired interim assistant principal, I hired even interim teachers that we call long-term subs. And when I've hired them in the past, the number one thing we said to them is just keep the ship afloat. That's your number one job when we're hiring an interim. That's not the message I heard when I came here as interim superintendent. There were things that needed to be worked on right away. One of them was the budget. I knew that loud and clear when I came in here. The other one was processes and procedures. We had some legal things going on, and my mission was to try to heal between the two towns in the school day. Those are my jobs. Not telling you anything that you don't know, but our budget was in sort of disarray. Right when I came here, we had no director of finance. We had a treasurer that was retiring. There was a payroll person and an accounts payable person that weren't able to do the job. I'll leave it at that. So within a short period of time, I had to get those people in place. We were in trouble financially, right? I came into a first payroll, right? And everyone has heard the story that went on. I was here a little bit. We paid some people our first round of teachers. Others we didn't pay. Others we paid the full salary for the entire year we paid. We had bills that weren't paid. All those things had to take place. I went to pay a bill. We didn't pay our postage through the summer, so I wasn't going to have postage. Our garbage wasn't being picked up. So that was a priority. It truly was. please don't misunderstand also, we have the Department of Education saying, we're concerned. We're troubled. We think we're going to be looking at a 1/12 budget for you. If people fully understand what that means they give us an allowance. And I'm not being careless about that, but that's what it is. Every month they say, here's your money, we're going to proportion that. That's not a best way to run a district. Certainly not a best way to be able to pay our staff and recruit high-quality teachers as well, too. Since then, we were able to hire a full-time director of finance and operation, hire a payroll person, hire an accounts payable person. To be able to get people to move their positions in the middle of the year, especially in education, is a tough thing to do. So people believe in the work that we're doing right now, and we're getting into a good spot. Do we still have work to do? We absolutely do. No question. We're still finding things that we still need to make right. And that's the number one thing. There's a joke that superintendents say, it's not really a good joke, but it's a joke that says if your curriculum director makes a mistake, you'll get yourself in a little bit of trouble. But if your business person makes a mistake, you get yourself arrested, right? And so that's why we always need to make sure that that's the foundation of our district as well, too. The other part, we had some legal issues. We solved those and moved on. Healing between the towns, working on that, right? You're hearing from both towns and saying, we want this to continue. We like the work that's been done so far by Al and his team. We want that work to continue both in Berlin and Boston. So when you ask me, the question is, why are you interested? I want to continue to work. That's my job as an interim superintendent. Make no doubt about it. I've done this job. I've retired from this job. My job is to get it so that the next person who comes on board is going to say, this is a great school district. These things are in place. Because these are the things that have to be in place. This is a really good school district, and I really enjoy doing it. But my number one thing is to get this ready, so when you post this job for a permanent superintendent, it will be in a spot that someone will come in that will be able to do this job and do it really, really well. That's my job. That's my goal, to make sure that takes place.
Thank you. Lisa, would you ask the next question?
How would you build strong relationships with parents, teachers, your admin team, town select board, finance committee, capital committee, and the school committee?
Sure, that's a lot in that question. It's all about relationships and all about having those conversations and honest relationships. Some of those are working really well, right? I've been here 8 months. There are certainly others that I need to be working on, but there are sort of priority other things I had to be working on, like I just talked to you about the budget. But when I talk to you about those building those relationships, I'm at those select board meetings. I'm at those capital meetings. I'm at those, obviously, school board meetings, providing information. They're seeing me there, asking me questions about that. Those relationships are starting to develop more and more, right? They see me, they know I'm available, they ask questions. We're really trying to get that transparency thing taken care of. Our admin team, yes, I meet weekly with them. Not always, sometimes, right? Sometimes it's bi-weekly. We meet bi-weekly as an admin team as well, too. Do I need to get better at that? Absolutely. That's a job that I continue to work on. And most interim superintendents, that's really the number one job. Build those relationships. But many times, our meetings, when I'm meeting with admin, are very structured agendas because we have to take care of the budget. We have to take care of a number of things that are processes and procedures in place. But those relationships develop over time. And certainly, if you're seeing for me to be the intro for next year as well, too, certainly that'll be one of my priorities that I'll be working on, is fostering those relationships and continue to foster those relationships. But I just push back a little bit on that one part of that question. The part that's missing in there is students, right? We asked that question about everybody else, but not students. Well, that's why we're here, right? That's why we're sitting in this job every day for our kids in our schools. That's the number one thing. And what I can proudly say is when I walk through these schools, students know who I am. I'm involved in what's taking place with them. Whether it be at the championship Super Bowl game, whether it be scooping ice cream here, whether we at the play on the weekends, whether walking through the corridors, or the kids saying to me, are you heading to the family feud right now, Mr. Ganam? They know who I am. And those relationships with students are so important. And those are the things that I cultivate as well, too. I think it's extremely important that we don't forget about our students, because they're number one reason why we do this job each and every day as well.
Thank you. This is Megan's question that I'll ask. What are your greatest strengths and weaknesses as a leader?
Humbling question, huh? Greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses. depending on, of course, who you'd ask, but if you're asking me my greatest strengths and weaknesses, compassion and hard work. I think those are my greatest strengths. I love the work I'm doing. As you can tell, whether it be, working with students, whether working with a private Catholic school, working as a superintendent, I love this work. Yeah, compassion and hard work. Those are the two things I also look for when I'm hiring an employee. You gotta have compassion and hard work. Anything else I can teach you. I can teach you. We can get professional learning for you. We can work with you. We can get you mentors. We can model. You either have that compassion or you have that work ethic or you don't. And I don't think anyone can ever question my compassion and my hard work for this job. So I think those are my strengths. My weaknesses, again, depending on who you ask, but I think my number one weakness is probably sometimes I'm just moving too fast. There are a lot of things we gotta get done. And sometimes they want instant gratification, instant answers from us. Whether it be a parent, a student, a teacher, right? Principals, select board. I'm on the phone daily with Kristen Ruben from Berlin, or April in the they want answers right. We need to move, right? And sometimes we just move a little bit too fast, right? And my job is to slow down a little. But people want answers. And there's the superintendent, but there's no assistant superintendent, there's no human resource, it's me out there, right? So sometimes we're looking for answers, and sometimes I move too quick. And sometimes I make a mistake. We do. And if there's ever a profession where we can make a mistake, it's this job. It's this field. We're supposed to be teaching our kids it's okay to make mistakes, as long as you learn from these mistakes. But instead we're reading books about the anxious generation because we're making our kids so nervous about what it looks like to be perfect on social media. We shouldn't be leading by examples. Like, it's okay to make a mistake, as long as you learn from it. Someone gave this to me 20 years ago, and this is the paper that's still there. And this is the quote they gave me. It is not the mistakes that define us, but the choices that we make afterwards that do. Like, that's what education should be all about. That's what this job is all about. So sometimes I make a mistake. It's only because I'm moving too fast sometimes. And that's something I have to get better at and work on that. And so if you ask me my weaknesses, my intention is always good. I put my head in my pillow every night and say I did the very best I could do each and every day. But sometimes I have to say to people, you know what? I'll be back to you. I'll be back to you. So those are my strengths. Those are my weaknesses as well too.
Thank you. Beth, please.
How will you handle the balance of respecting longtime employees of the district's experience and familiarity with how things have always been with new ideas, changes, and perspectives?
Great question. We don't do as well as we should do in memorializing things. We have some great experienced teachers. John Campbell, experienced principal. We have directors that are experienced and been here a long time. It's sort of a joke, but not really. We say, where can I see that? Where is it memorialized, right? And we call it sort of a folklore because it's there. We just don't have it memorialized. What we're doing today is tomorrow's history, right? We need to memorialize what we're doing and put it somewhere so we have policies and procedures. So I don't want anyone 5 years from now to say, tell me what the interim superintendent, how do we understand this? Because it's not memorialized. For in terms of hiring, for payroll, like anyone that's been in such office, we have cabinets galore, file cabinets, unbelievable, but no process and procedures. So finally, we have an accounts payable system where Arnold and Patty are doing incredible work there. We finally have a system where you got to have a requisition, you got to have a purchase order, here's how it's been paid, and guess what? We're putting it all electronic, so we don't have to have all these cabinets, which really don't know what's in what cabinet, right? We have it all there, we just don't know where it is. We got to get procedures in place, and that's how we're memorializing the good work that happened then. We brought, and I can say this pretty confidently, for the first time, all our secretaries together. Brought them upstairs to central office. Patty and I brought them in, brought them Chinese food, brought them lunch, and said, tell us what's working, what you've done for year after year, and what still needs to be done. And that's the work we're doing now. And I would say to you, they think the work that we're doing right now and memorializing it is important. Systems and processes in place. And that's the work we need to do to memorialize the past and get it ready for the future.
Thank you. Jess, would you please ask the next question?
How could you create an environment where staff felt safe to approach you with problems?
So that's something we got to figure out together. I think that's something that takes time, right? And I would say to you, I try that each and every day, right? My principals and directors know they can text me day or night. They email me day and night. They also know that I don't do a good job in terms of doing that as well too. Sometimes I'm emailing them, texting them, and late at night, which is probably not a really a good thing. But that's certainly something that evolves. Certainly something that if I'm in the role of the interim superintendent for next year, I'll be working on that as well too. That takes time, right? And trust, and be able to have those organic conversations. Again, when I meet with my admin, when we meet, it's all, we gotta take care of this, and this. I've been here a little over 7 months and trying to get that district in place. So sure, I need to develop more, spending more time in talking and getting those things done. But I also would say our principals and directors say, we need this to be operating and working as well too. We need this to be taking place as well too. So will I work on that? Yes. Do I need to continue to work on that? Yes. Is it 2 ways? Absolutely. And do I need to get better at that? I do. But that will helpfully happen over time. And that takes time to build the trust and build relationships as well too.
Thank you. This is a Megan assigned question, so I'll ask it. How do you handle conflict situations within the school district?
So we have a district of 1,116 students. We have a district of 238 employees. We are a human resource job, right? We deal with humans all day long. If you don't think for a second, we have conflict every single day, you're mistaken. Some are here, some are here. My very first day, as Nicole will attest to, I had parents lined up at my door saying, we want to talk about this. I left the negotiations meeting, there's dealing with conflict over there. Again, small. 99.9% of the time, you don't know what's going on. You don't know about those conflicts because of resolving them by listening and learning from them, right? That's my job as part of that as well too, to handle those conflicts and be able to get them resolved so that people walk away happily. Again, most of them you don't know about at all, but there are. Whether it be a parent with a teacher, a parent with a principal, principal with a principal, teacher with a teacher, student with all of them. Working with the union, working with all those parties involved to make sure we resolve those conflicts the best we can. But one of the things you're going to hear me say is we need some sort of HR. We have Patty Spunsberg, who does incredible work, but she's also payroll, trying to get everyone paid, trying to figure out our bills for the past. But we add on HR to her title as well too. But I'll be presenting a school committee later on, after hopefully we see where our budget's going to be, if it needs to be at that meeting May 5th. But we need to be able to get maybe some sort of consult with HR, right? We have that many people that walk through this building, their buildings every single day, right? We need a system in place that we can just sort of check on and get some help. We're having Katie Minall tomorrow come in and give us some professional warning as well too, with all of our principals and directors as well too. We need to make sure, because we make big mistakes, that can get us in some trouble sometimes. But please know there's conflict every day, and that's part of my job of dealing with it. The other part about it is after it leaves the principal's building, then it's me. There's no assistant superintendent, there's no other people that are there, so it goes directly to me. So that's part of my job that I do that every day, but the majority of the time, you're just not aware of because we handle them. But I try my very best to listen and learn every single day, and hopefully come away that we're all feeling okay about this conflict and we can move on. We're a human resource environment. We have this many people working here each day.
Thank you. So could you speak to your skills and experiences in the budget process? Please address your experience with regional school budgets if applicable.
So not much, no, sorry, it's not time to put a joke in there, sorry about that. So I was superintendent in Hampton Wilbraham for 6 years with a regional school district very similar to Berlin Wilson. As I've come on board here, certainly that has probably been my priority, is getting our district and trade in place. We have a regional school district that's very complicated. The formula is very complicated. I think people still are understanding it. It's only been a period of time. I know it's not a favorable response, but I say we need to revisit the regional agreement. The complications of budgetarily is sort of confusing, right? People want to give money for capital. People want to give money for different areas of the budget. But how does that impact the relationship with Tohoto as well too that's shared, right? The regional agreement is very, very complicated, but it involves the budget. And I would say all day long, I am very fortunate to have a director of finance that is great. I have a great finance world. But it's also my responsibility as a superintendent to make sure I understand that and know that. To be able to have those conversations when I'm walking through the parking lot today, and April stops and talks to me, right? When I'm at the town meetings, when I'm at different events, when I'm going to get my coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, and the gentleman says to me, "Hey, talk to me about this budget right now, superintendent." You know, it's a curse of wearing a bow tie as well, because I think they identify me more with that. But I need to be able to have that conversation. But I also need to have that conversation when the towns come back and say, "You got to cut $1 million," right? That's not a numbers game. That's the job of the superintendent. Needs to know that budget. So I can sit down and say, instead of just saying, "I'm cutting art, I'm cutting music, I'm cutting phys ed, and that's done with it." You need to know a budget, understand it, and be able to really dissect it and make sure you're doing the right cuts. Because it's, again, you're affecting it's HR, right? You're affecting people's livelihoods. So you not only need to be able to understand that budget, the numbers wise, but you got to understand the overall impact of it, the curriculum that goes along with that, making reductions, right? All of that. And if people want to give money, where's the best way to use our money? And what's the thing that's going to have the least impact on our students? Every cut we make is impacting our students. But as a superintendent understands the budget and understands curriculum, those are important conversations. Aaron and I, Patty and Arnold, every day about 10, 12 times we're meeting just to talk about this budget, see where we're going. Any little move we make, how's that going to affect, and how's that going to affect our students? That's my job. So I understand the budget, but there's a bigger piece of it. You got to understand the whole dynamics of being a superintendent, understanding all the facets of that as well too. When you have to add some additional money funding, which we always hope that will happen, but when that money comes in, where are we going to best use that money? When we have to make cuts, where are we going to make those cuts as well too? So I have experienced that, and I've also had the experience, as you can know, the hiring people, right? So we're sitting in an interview, hiring director of finances. You better know what questions to ask. You better know the correct answers as well too. Sometimes you can sort of fake things, right? I sit in a calculus BC class. I pray for the teacher to come back in as I'm covering for the bathroom, because if a kid asks me a question for calculus BC, way out of my lane, right? And I'm okay, I own that. But I better know the finances, because that's the foundation of our school district. We need to make sure of that. That's the foundation. Everything else is based on that. I have to be able to make sure I have the things that teachers need so they can have it in their classrooms to provide for our kids. And also, how's that equitable across our districts from both Boston, Berlin, and Taunton? How's it equitable?
Thank you. Lori, last but not least, please, would you ask number 8?
Okay, so my question is long. This doesn't require a long answer. Give you a little rest. It may be familiar. We are currently in the middle of a big shift. Our current interim superintendent has had to do much more than just his superintendent duties. He is trying to make sense of last year's budget and finding things like job descriptions and professional practices that need updating or creating as some don't exist. Typically works well beyond 7 p.m. on weekdays, attends town meetings in both Berlin and Boylston that often run until 9 or 10, and he often spends weekends in central office. Do you feel that you are equipped to continue his work? Would you be able to dedicate as much time to turning our district around so we could attract a full-time superintendent next year?
I looked in the mirror the other day, I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I'm looking pretty old there lately. But so my goal as an interim is to get this district in a place where the superintendent can come in and work smarter, not harder. That's my job. Do I start every morning? Finally, we have a flag outside of the central office in the police station. Every morning, I go out there and I put that flag up, right? We finally have a flag out there. It's like what we should. And every day, at the end of the day, which I'll leave after I come here, I'll go back and bring it in. I am not I am not a corner office superintendent. I am not. And if that's what you're looking for, I'm not your guy, right? There are some of my colleagues that are corner office superintendents. So what that means, they go in their office is always in the corner when you're superintendent for some reason, and they get their work done, and good for them. but that's not the work that I like doing. Does that work need to get done? Yes. Do I need to get those things in place? But I love being in schools. I start my morning in schools. I apologize to Nicole over and over again. She tries to manage me the best she can by staying in the central office. I call her. It's a true story. Yesterday afternoon, she picks up the phone. There's about 10 kids behind me. I yell and I change your schedule. We want the superintendent to be at this event at 10 o'clock this morning. Which I got to, but Nicole has to rearrange everything because that's where I need to be, right? I need to be in schools, I need to be at the events, I need to be there, so that's what I should be doing. That's how I really see the work that should be getting done each and every day, right? So I'm trying to get those things, that's a priority for me, but I gotta get this district in place. All this work still needs to be done, all of this. And that's my goal for next year, is to get it in place so the next superintendent comes on board and work smarter, not harder. We have professional learning done, right? We're ready for our calendar for next year, what we're working on. This book, UDL Now, and I give Sally and the team credit, the author is Katie Novak. Not Novak, Novak. Guess who our guest speaker is for the beginning of next year? Katie Novak. We're going to have high quality professional learning for next year. We got the author of this book coming to our district to talk to our teachers about universal design for learning. Incredible. And that's it. All this work still needs to be done. Looking at projections and our enrollment, that's my job still as a superintendent. All the things about being in schools, I love it. It's the best part of my job. I'd be lying to you. I enjoy it. I love scooping ice cream with the kids. I love going to the different events. I love going to the basketball games. I love writing the notes afterwards and saying, congratulations, great job. I love having a little breakfast for the teams as well, too. All of that is important. Really is important. But all of this still needs to be done. All of this. Right here, this is our MCAS scores for Berlin-Williston for the last 5 years. This is the stuff I'm looking at when I go back on the weekends and look at how we can improve these scores, how we compare to other districts. This is something that we really got to look at, and we're not. This is the work I still need to do all the time. So, yes, I'm trying to get this all in place. We need it. We need a strategic plan, right? All of this needs to get in place. So yes, I'm hoping that I have it all in place, so the next superintendent will come in and say, we're good, we got these things in place, and we'll memorialize them as well too. So I am working hard to get it all done, because that's what he charged me to do as the interim superintendent. Not to just keep the ship afloat, to get these things in place. So when you're posting that job for the next superintendent, they're gonna come back and say, we're ready. The one goal I want to have for next year is the same thing that took place when I left Camden over here. When the superintendent got up there during the summer meetings on record and said, I want to thank Superintendent Ganam for leaving me a great district. That's my goal. That's my only goal besides all of this for next year. To make sure that I have this district in place, the superintendent can come and say, this is the place I want to be. This is the place I want to work. So I'm putting the time into it now because it's going to hopefully be paid later down the road. And I'm putting it in so it's more relaxed. And so we'll have these things in place. I'm digging into the data. We're looking at our enrollment projections. We're looking at how the roles and clarity of principals and administrators. We have professional learning. We're going to be reading another book, which I have for all school committee next year, is this book. It's a phenomenal book. I have one for each one of you, spirit work, right? It talks about collaboration, and we've talked about that. And that's one thing I haven't done this year with you guys, is have a book study, which I promised you, but I purchased all these books so we have them. And the best way to get transparency, which everyone seems to be asking us for, is collaboration and communication equals transparency. So it's a great way for us to start as a district. So if I get these things in place, we'll be ready for the next superintendent to come in here and be permanent. That's my goal.
All right, thank you very much. That was our final question.
Can I get a closing?
Do you have a closing?
I do, if that's okay. This has been one of the most rewarding jobs I've had in 7.5, 8 months. But it's also probably one of the hardest jobs I ever had. But I enjoyed it tremendously. And my work will continue to get it ready for the next superintendent to come aboard. I thank you for the opportunity to work with you. This school committee's been wonderful, right? They've been supportive. They've been working with me. I've been very, very fortunate. And I can honestly say that, and I'm saying that publicly, and I've worked with quite a few school committees. I've been very thankful. got a great staff, we got great admin, we got great students. We want to be able to get this ready for the next superintendent come on board. My job is to create a culture, and I know it falls a lot on me. You know, difficult conversations happen. Last Monday was probably a difficult conversation. I think a lot of you are on board on that conversation that took place in Boston. I understand that, but that's part of my job. But one thing I do need to apologize for is during that conversation, some questions arose about people that were hired in the central office. Appreciate, Mike, that you stood up and said something about that. We talk about climate and culture. That was a tough culture and climate for you to walk in on Tuesday morning, right? The staff that works there. Every single person in this district, their job is to provide a high quality education, whether it be parents, finance, payroll, teachers, students, school committee, everyone in this room. Our job is to make sure that we're providing a high quality education, retaining them as well too. But it's all of us that need to be doing this, right? Climate and culture falls on me as a superintendent, but I would say it falls on all of us because it's all of our jobs. I go back to the autobiography of John F. Kennedy, and you've probably heard me say this story before. He's walking through NASA, he sees someone pushing a broom, he says, "What is your job here?" And the gentleman turns to him and says, "My number one job is to get a man in the room." Every single person that works either in central office, as an administrator, as a teacher, as a parent, as school committee, as select boards, FinCom, capital, our number one job is to provide a high quality education for our kids. But we all need to do it together. I know the face of the district, and I'll take that all day long, but I also need us to work together to this, because that's all of our jobs right now. So thank you for the opportunity. I hope I answered all your questions.
Thank you. All right. Tracy, I know you're gonna walk Mr. Ganam out, but do you have anything to advise us before we start deliberating, or?
I mean, I can walk him right out and pop right back in. I mean, there's a couple of different processes that you can make. One that I think perhaps I would just recommend is that each of you name your top candidates, and I would take a minute to look through your stuff first. To be slightly more even keeled than just sort of having someone make a motion. Also, of course, you are deliberating in public is always a good thing to remember and being recorded, so be thoughtful about what you say.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't know that.
I'll leave.
All right, thanks, Tracy. We'll go through our notes and we'll start when you come back.
Sure. We're gonna need minutes.
Yeah. Guys are a lot of stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Tracy suggested that maybe we would go around and just, if we have a top candidate in mind, narrow it down that way. So I have a list here. I'm going to go around the table. No particular order other than, I think
experience or longevity on the school committee is how I listed names, so we'll start with Lori.
So it's a really hard decision because they're all very qualified and they all bring different gifts to the table. My first pick would be Mr. Ganam, based on what we've witnessed and where he is in his work.
Okay, next I think is Jess.
Well, golly gee, that's a hard decision. I think, can I explain before I decide?
I think right now we're just trying to get just a top, do you have a top candidate and then see if we come up with any commonalities there?
I can eliminate one.
Who would be your top?
I don't know. I think Dr. Susan Gilson and Al Ganam are neck and neck in terms of what could be given to the district long term.
Okay. Next would be Lisa.
Al Ganam is my top choice because he's done so many great things here already, and I think we're lucky to have him, and we'd be lucky to keep him for another year.
All right, Beth.
My top choice is Al Ganam, same reasons. I think he's done a great job. I went back and watched the meeting we decided to do an interim, and the biggest thing that came up was stability, and keeping Al his stability. I did like Dr. Gilson a lot though. She's a very engaging person, but Al is my number one.
I would agree. So it does look like Al is a majority top choice. In order to discuss, deliberate, we should have a motion.
Lisa? Oh, sorry.
Is there a motion to hire any of the candidates?
I'd like to make a motion to hire Mr. Albert Ganam as the interim superintendent for the 2025-26 school year.
That's Lori. Is there a second?
Second?
Lisa, thank you. All right, so the motion on the floor that we will discuss and deliberate and then vote on is to hire Al Ganam as the interim superintendent for next year. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say?
I think one of the things that Al brings to the table is the repaired relationships within the towns. And I think that's really, really important. I think there's a lot that goes into selecting someone, but the repair work that he has done and the confidence that the boards have in him, I think, to your point of stability, Beth, I think that's really important. And I also feel badly that we didn't mention anyone, Ms. Flaherty, who I also really like. So I'd put that in there.
And also, I feel like he really is setting a lot of things straight, which is part of, the relationship building. But like, he's like looking through just like so many different conversations where he's like identifying, ways that we're spending too much money, where we could save money, or, just like really streamlining everything. And like he was saying, memorializing everything, documenting everything, and just making it more efficient and effective.
Anyone else? Jess?
I think when we entered into doing an interim for a second year, my main concerns were we were competing about districts that were having superintendents of 25 years retire. And I was concerned that we wouldn't gain good candidates for a long-term solution. I think Al has done an amazing amount of work, and honestly, I don't understand why he wants to continue, because it's an incredibly hard thing, and the hours that he puts in are inconceivable to human life. But I think the goal we gave the interim superintendent last year was to pick us up out of a situation, and he did just that. And I think, the attractive thing Dr. Susan Gilson's, she gave us this entry plan, and I think it would benefit everyone if we were to set goals, just like we would for a superintendent. So if there's something that people are not happy with, or we need to go in a different direction, there are measurable stop points in these goals that we can address things before they get out of hand, so.
You're up.
My preference for Al has to do with the fact that he has no goals beyond this year. His goal is, he has an end date. There's no, like, he can't stay longer. That's appealing to me, that he has a goal for this year, and his goal is to get us a really great permanent superintendent next year. And I appreciate somebody who's willing to do that, because I don't question their motives. And I just think we're gonna have a great opportunity next year. I also, when I went back and watched the video, we talked about what the timeline was going to look like for hiring for the next one. And I'm very concerned about switching superintendents, interim superintendents so late in the game, because how are they going to, the goal was for the next interim to transition the new permanent superintendent. And we talked about possibly hiring someone in like January. So we're gonna hire someone to start September 1st, and then they're gonna be the one transitioning that person. I would prefer it to be someone who knows this district much better. So that's my feeling.
Yeah. So everybody had a chance to speak. I'd like to say some things too. I don't disagree with anything that any of you said. Megan's not here tonight, but I think we need to thank Megan for bringing Al to us. I think it's probably the best thing that she's done for the district is bring Al to us. Last summer, Al discussed it in his interview. We were in a mess. The previous superintendent, we all know the struggles we had with the budget through the town meeting, the special town meeting, leaving, going off, telling Megan, she's going to retire. A couple weeks before school started, I can't imagine the work that Megan had to do to go out as the chair at the time, and the pressure, the stress that was on her. She reached out to Tracy. Tracy helped quite a bit, but Megan really did the bulk of the work to bring Al into this district. I remember talking to her at the time. The first thing I said to her, she gave me the name, and the first thing I said to her, I was like, Megan, this guy's got an ethics complaint right there. It's like Google. It's like the first thing that comes up. And she said, no, trust me. I've had a conversation with him. Just trust me. Just trust me. I'm begging you. Just please have a conversation with him and see what you think. So I did. And I listened to her. I had a conversation with him. And then we got 2 applicants for that job. And we chose Al. And I think we all need to give credit to Megan for doing that for us. That was really good. But yeah, I agree with what Beth said, stability, right? And, have someone in here for 4 months and then they're still trying to figure out what's going on before they have to transition to someone else. So, Jess, your comments about the outline that she gave us. Yeah, it's great. No complaints. I just, I think for consistency's sake and stability, I think is the best. I mean, he came in, the team that he's built in central office, like he mentioned as well. Again, he came into a situation where basically rebuilt from the ground up. There was nobody in there. Bills weren't being paid. Paychecks weren't going out. Not just simple things, but I don't know if you work, but if you are expecting your pay to come in and you have your bills set up to go out and then you don't get your pay or you get the wrong pay, that's kind of a problem. And that's what he walked into. As an executive, he has to, he has people that he's worked with in the past, so he brings them in and gets things functioning again. That's what you do at that level. They were able to come in, no training, they knew what they were doing, absolute professionals, walked in, and within a few months, yeah, we got a lot of problems, but they started solving them one by one, prioritizing and getting things solved. And all I've heard from around the district was, yes, they've been doing great. I got paid, fantastic. I can get my bills paid. I know we had some issues last week. We got a lot of emails as a committee. We got one email multiple times. It seemed like a lot of copy and paste going on, pointing out some flaws, but then we also got emails in favor. I spoke to a lot of people in Berlin who they're a little more hesitant maybe to write into us, to put things in writing, but speaking to them, had nothing but good things to say about the change that has been going on. So I think I agree with everything you guys have said. If anybody has any last thoughts to say, and then we'll vote on this current motion.
I would like to say one thing. I was able to attend that meeting on Monday night through Google Meet, and I know one of the criticisms of Al, which was interesting because I have a really opposite stance on that, was that he brought in his own people. To me, that's a credit to Al. When you have really competent, good people who can come in and straighten out a situation and they're willing to come and work with him, that says that they have respect for his ethics, the way that he runs things. And so I think we've been lucky to have him and to have the people that he's brought in, because it's a machine that's working out there, and the staff has said how grateful they are for the central office staff, the teachers, and that's a wonderful thing to hear, because normally you don't hear that, but they've been so appreciative because so many things have been ironed out in such a short period of time.
Anybody else? Any final comments?
I think we give him that mission too, like bring in a competent team to help solve this issue. And so, I know with the ethics complaint that looks suspicious, but that's exactly what we charged him to do, and he did it, and he brought us out of a bad situation. So, I think interims have a lot of work to do, and we still have miles to travel.
And I also want to say that I just think it's so impressive what he and Al have done with the budget, because it's probably like one of the worst budgets ever, because it's like below level, but also, there's cost increases, and because of his organization and experience and communication and hard work, making sure that he listens and, communicates everything to all of the different communities in the town, that everybody respects him and respects Aaron. He has generated so much respect despite it being, coming from where we were last year, and then also that this budget kind of stinks, but people still really respect him, and he has healed a lot of the issues because of his work and his approach.
Thank you. Beth, do you have anything?
I just want to say, I was talking to Al at one point, and I'm probably saying it wrong, but I think he said that candor is kindness, and being candid with people is being kind to them. And I think sometimes people aren't used to that level of candor, and it rubs them the wrong way. And so I think there's a little bit of that, and I think he also deserves people to be candid with him too. He's learning, he can't fix it if you don't address what your complaint is. And my feeling of the last week is that I hadn't heard anything negative until last week, so it was really hard for me to take that all in, where it's like, we want, let's fix it along the way, let's all be candid, if you see something, say something, and if you don't like how something's being done, let's be upfront and honest about it, and we can all work on fixing it. We can all work on being more transparent. There's room for us all to grow.
Create an open environment.
Yeah, yes.
All right. Obviously Al is the incumbent. He has a leg up on everyone because we have experience with him. I want to make it clear that this is not any negative knock on any of the other candidates. I think I forgot to mention, it's not listed on the agenda, but last week we did vote to invite 4 candidates to come interview. One of those candidates did choose to take a position elsewhere, so that's why they weren't here tonight, just in case anybody was wondering. I want to put that out there.
But are we ready to vote? So we're voting on the motion to hire Al Ganam as the interim superintendent for next year. We will just do a roll call vote to be official, and I will go in the same order. Lori?
Aye.
Jess?
Aye.
Lisa?
I,
Beth?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. So that motion passes. We will hire Al Ganam, probably should have said subject to negotiations.
Subject to negotiation.
Yeah, subject to negotiations on his contract, but, all right, that is the last item on our agenda today. Could I please have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So,
Lori?
Second.
Jess? Okay, all in favor?
aye.
Anyone against adjourning? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
And just so you know, I'll contact the finalists unless anyone wants to. But I'll contact the finalist, although the one you just hired is in family feud, so I told them I would send them.
Tracy, they let them off. They did such, please let them know that it was not